canceled before. No one, but he didn't answer all that. So I know it. I'm gonna yell at him. I'm gonna have to have it stop right there. Oh, okay. Maybe we can put it right at like the same time. Like 2:32.
So one of the things you have to know how to do is flip a factor. And so this should be a short lecture. For examples, I'd been wrong many, many times before. I feel like this could or should go pretty smooth, but a skill that you need to possess is the ability to flip a factor backwards. And the reason for that is because we sometimes need to take factors and get them to switch directions so that they'll then be the same as another factor with whom we want them to cancel. So before we get into actually doing a math problem, it's like putting this into use, let's just practice the fine skill of flipping things around. So say I had a factor that was 5 minus x. Commonly, almost exclusively in math, what you're going to find is that math people, we don't write things this way. We prefer to write them with the variable first. And unfortunately, subtraction doesn't play nice with others. Subtraction is not just willy-nilly. So you can't just take like 5 minus x and just say, oh, I just feel like writing it as x minus 5. Because of course, subtraction is not commutative, meaning you can't just flip it backwards. Like plus, we could do that. No one would care. Times, we could do that. No one would care. But minus, we have to take some care. So if I wanted to take 5 minus x and write it backwards as x minus 5, I can. But what I have to do is I have to factor out a negative. And in this case, I'll show you what that looks like. And just so you have some buy-in as to like, wow, is he making this up? Is Mr. Ahern, smoking the cracky whack? If I were to take this new one over here and put a negative, or you could put -1 if you'd like, if you're into that kind of thing. Take a look at it, and I hope you have some buy-in that this is actually legit. I know that 5 minus x doesn't feel like it has a quote greatest common factor, but if I did pull out a negative or a -1, watch what happens. What is -1 times x? And that's where my negative x comes from. And what is -1 times -5? And there's your positive 5 right there. So kind of proof positive that you can indeed take factors and flip them backwards, but you have to pay the toll. And the toll is simply pulling a negative out. And that negativity is what causes the subtraction flip-flop, right? Let's practice another time. Let's say we had like 14 minus 2x. And again, I put a lot of these in today's assignment just to kind of try to train into you that idea of I'm trying to get you to not like things like this. You shouldn't like that. You shouldn't feel good about that. Your instinct should tell you that it's quote backwards. It's not like mathematically defective, but it's backwards. And so when I ask you to pull out a GCF, normally you would say, well, I can pull out a 2. What are we going to pull out? Yeah. So by pulling out a -2, not only do I GCF it, but I also accomplish the task of reversing the order. So what term would now go first?
Negative, or x.
Positive x. And what would go second?
Negative.
-7. Good. So that's what's going to be expected of you, because what I planted throughout today's assignment, and you'll see this in the actual examples that we're going to do, what I planted throughout are factors that won't match unless you do the flipsy-do. And the flipsy-do takes place by the act of simply pulling out a negative. Pulling a negative causes subtraction to go backwards. So let's get to the actual examples. I got 4 of them, shouldn't take all too long. So this is basically just going to piggyback off of yesterday's lesson. It's just a little bit harder because of the backwards nature of things. So right away, who don't we like? Like which one just doesn't set right with us?
The bottom.
The bottom is just off. And so again, that's the training that we want to get into ourselves, is just to say, I don't like that. Like I'm not going to get struck by lightning or anything, but I don't like it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave the top the way it is, because I got no issues with the top. I'll come back to that guy in a minute. But the bottom, I want to pull my negative sign out. And then I'm going to just literally switch flip the bottom, like meaning flip the signs, switch the order. So in front, I'm going to have my positive x squared. Second, I'm going to have my plus 4x. And last, I'm going to have my minus 21. So by forcing that issue, you're causing now factors to appear that will match factors, hopefully, that appear somewhere else in the problem. Jared, you okay, my man?
Where did the plus come from?
Which one? On the 4x? Because I'm switching all of their signs. So remember, this used to be a positive 21. So it switched to minus 21. This used to be a minus 4x. It switched to plus. And this used to be a negative x squared. It switched, as you can see, to positive. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what the act of pulling a negative does. We have to do it equitably to all of the terms, and then they all just flip. And then we're able to put it in the order also that we wish. And it'll be factorable. We don't want to just flip the order and make it put the negative on the x squared. That's no fun, no good. So having said that, that ought to feel now just like yesterday's assignment. What is the top going to become? Yeah, just a simple uber easy difference of 2 squares. And then the bottom, I'm still going to keep that negative out and accounted for. And what is my bottom going to factor into?
X minus 3x.
So what's happening, what you see now would not have happened had we not done the switch. So the switch enabled us to produce or expose a factor of x minus 3. So that's the challenge with this, is trying to figure out a creative way to milk everything out of it that you can. But now this x minus 3 on top and this x minus 3 on bottom are able to cancel. The way we express answers like this in their final state, pay close attention, is we take the negative and we put it out in front of the fraction like this. So our answer is negative x plus 3 over x plus 7. So we don't want to assign negatives in math to either the top or the bottom. If the negative is assigned to one or the other, then we're like, let's just pull it out and let the reader of our answer be the judge. They can put it on top or they could put it, but we leave it out front. Any questions on that so far? Okay. Comes another one. So every example I have today is going to be a flip. There will be a couple of assignment problems today that don't require flips. Out of the 16, you'll probably find 5 or so that are just kind of more like yesterday's. But the majority will cause you to have to do the switch. So clearly the bottom should red flag us by this point in the lecture. So what are we going to pull out of the bottom? Nice work. Exactly -6. Good job. And the top, I'm just going to leave him alone for now. So top, I'm just going to recopy over. We know what it is, and we'll come back to you in a minute. But the bottom, I'm definitely going to pull a negative to switch it and a 6 because it's a GCF. And now I'm going to rebuild. And again, as we rebuild, we're cognizant of the fact that not only are we changing all the signs, but we're also going to change the order to suit our desires. So what term is going to go first? After that? Plus x after that? Nice. Good job, you guys. So if you've already kind of picked that up, then we're pretty well done with the lion's share of the learning here. That's really what this is about today. And now it's time to actually do the factoring. So let's go ahead and do a little extra practice just for the sake of anyone that might feel still a little iffy. What is the top? Yeah, it's a difference of cubes, right? Where a is x and b is 2. So we're going to have a short set of x minus 2 and a long set of x squared plus 2x plus 4. All right, and then the bottom, we're still going to keep that -6 out in front, and then we're going to factor the trinomial. What does that factor into? Right, good job. And again, because of what we did, we were able then to expose a factor that needed exposing, and that is that x minus 2. We never would have found the x minus 2 on bottom. We would have seen some defective backwards version of him that would have been of no use. So the x minus 2 on top and the x minus 2 that we sort of unearthed on bottom are able to cancel. Now remember, the long set is not factorable. So all we have to worry about now is just how do I express the answer? And again, the idea is because there's a lone negative, we're going to put the negative out front, and it doesn't go to the top, it doesn't go to the bottom, it just goes to the fraction. And what is my top going to be?
X squared plus 2.
Right, it's no parentheses necessary because it's not multiplied by anything else. And then my bottom is 6 times x plus 3. Note that the negative is no longer there because we put it out front where it belongs. Still good? All right. Okay, good. All right, a couple more. This one. Tell me about the top. Yeah. But what is the bottom going to look like? Like, what are we going to do down there?
I got a negative 2.
I'll definitely pull out that negative 2. Good job. And again, the 2 is just something we know, and the negative is something we just learned today. So if I pull the negative 2, then what does that leave behind?
Negative 2. Minus 9.
Well done. Good job. So it stays subtraction when we pull a negative. It just flips it backwards, which is pretty cool. What a great skill to have. And actually, I'm going to factor the top while I'm here. What does he factor down into? Well done. And again, through our sheer ingenuity, we were able to expose a factor that we otherwise would not have seen. So the x minus 9s go poof. How would I write my final version of this answer?
Negative, and then on top x plus 4 over 2. Or,
Yep, just like that. So again, get that negative out. Don't leave negatives buried in fractions. No one likes that stuff. This last example, I thought was probably the hardest one. I almost didn't put this. This I put on the back of the note card kind of last minute because I looked at one problem on your assignment. Number 5. And I was like, yeah, 5's kind of wicked. So I thought I would conjure an example to sort of go with that. So when you get to problem 5 on today's new assignment, just kind of use this part of your notes as your inspiration. But I thought this would probably be the hardest of them all. So on top, we're going to have 48x minus 28x squared minus 6x cubed. And then on the bottom, we're going to have 36x plus 66x squared plus 10x cubed. So what do you think?
on the top, I pull it in negative 2.
Yeah, so
I think it would be a negative. But anyway. No, I was gonna say.
Okay.
I was thinking.
So yeah, so on top, I do want it to go backwards. And I also want to pull the negative in this case because of the nature of the way the terms are written. So on top, I'm going to pull a negative 2, and I'm also going to pull an x. And so the top negative 2x is popping out. That's the best we can do with all of those numbers is pull a negative 2. And of course the x. And that's going to leave behind something that I certainly don't want to try to factor like while I'm here. Like I'm going to get this one right now. So what's my first term going to be?
3x squared
Nice. Second.
plus 14x
Good job, you guys.
minus 24.
Nice job. Well done. Now the bottom I thought would be interesting to talk to you about. What do we pull on the bottom? Just a 2x. Good job. Way to not say negative. I was hoping that you wouldn't do that. Good job. we don't have any sign issues on the bottom that necessitate pulling a negative. The bottom, honestly, I just wrote backwards to hope you'd say what you did. So great job. So on top, I am going to just, or on bottom, I'm just going to pull a regular old 2x. And I am going to reverse the order completely like free of charge, because remember, plus doesn't care. Positive numbers, you do whatever you like. So my first term is going to be what? Mhm. Nice.
Plus 18.
Excellent work. So that was part of why I wanted to do this problem with you. The other part is that this factoring, I know some of you find this to be more challenging because, well, it is. So the trouble with this is the factoring has numbers in front of our x squareds, but like they're prime. And so we're tough, like we can handle this. And so the top up here, you and I both know that if it's factorable, which, God, I hope it is. Unless I wrote you a bunk problem. We know if it's factorable that it's going to factor like this with a 3x and an x, because again, it's prime. And I also know that my signs have to be one of each. I need a positive and I need a negative. So I'm going to just pop those in there. Might have to switch them. What are you thinking for your 24? Yeah, and actually, good job putting the 6 over here. Smart play to put the 6 polar dead across from the 3, because that's going to get you to 18 or negative 18, and that's going to get us closer to the 14. So good thinking there. And we will have to switch the signs for sure. But yeah, so that works. The dynamic of that works. I just have to change my signs. So instead of plus and then minus, I want minus and then plus. So the top, I can pull out the old stuff and pop in the new stuff. How about the bottom? What do we know about him?
Won't it be
For sure. Yeah, so I mean, factoring doesn't get much nicer than this.
X plus 6 and
Right. And again, you've done enough of these that your sense just tells you where to put the 6 because you want to power play it with the 5 to make the 30. So factoring should feel way less like a guessing game than it did when we started this last year in Algebra 1 at the end of the year. So it should feel now like you have a strategy to it. So that can now replace the bottom. And then it's time to do our thing. So what cancels?
the 2.
Yeah, and so this 2x, I'm going to be careful with my purple pen. The 2x cancels the 2x, but note that I did not cancel the negative, right? So he's still there. What else cancels? X plus 6's. So what's our final answer?
3.
Right, so it's negative, and then we put that just dead across from the fraction, like not the top, not the bottom, just out front. And then the top is my 3x minus 4, no parentheses needed, and then my bottom is 5x plus 3. So you know how I roll. There's probably going to be something that I forgot to say, and I'm sorry, but I hope I covered it all. So today I hope you're getting done-ish with assignment 32, and I'll also give you assignment 33, and that's what we're going to work on today. And then tomorrow we're going to start multiplying rationals together, which is actually super easy. Multiplying, dividing.